When we think of samurai, we usually picture noble warriors, right? Well, today, we're tearing that picture up and looking at the brutal, bloody reality behind the unification of feudal Japan. So forget the romance novels, because this is a story about power and the terrifying price that was paid to get it. And, this quote really just says it all. We celebrate the idea of unifying a nation, bringing peace to a land at war, but it forces you to ask, what was the real cost? It's a challenge, really, to look past the official stories and see the bloodstains on the pages of history. So that's the big question we're digging into today. The warlords who forged Japan into a single nation, they're often praised as these incredible visionaries. But were they? Or were their methods so horrific, so ruthless, that they actually crossed the line into something much, much darker? Let's take a look. Okay, so we're diving into the Sengoku period, which was basically Japan's massive, century-long civil war. It was an age completely defined by the sword, sure, but the men in charge, their cruelty went way beyond what you'd call the necessities of war. For them, terror wasn't a byproduct, it was a political tool. And there is no better, or maybe I should say no worse example of this than Oda Nobunaga. His shadow is just the longest and the darkest over this entire period. He was the first of the great unifiers, and his methods were absolutely legendary for their sheer brutality. I mean, just think about the title Nobunaga gave himself, Demon King of the Sixth Heaven. This wasn't some nickname his enemies came up with. No, he chose it. It was a direct slap in the face to the powerful Buddhist temples, basically a declaration that his power, his secular authority was absolute. He was making it crystal clear, nothing was sacred in his quest to rule. And boy, did he prove it at the siege of Mount Hiei. To crush the warrior monks that defied him, he didn't just defeat them in battle. No, he surrounded their entire sacred mountain and burned the whole thing to the ground. He slaughtered thousands, and not just the monks, but regular men, women, and children who had fled there for safety. The scale of this massacre sent an absolute shockwave across all of Japan. So after Nobunaga dies, his top general, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, steps up and seizes power. And if you were hoping the cruelty might end there, you would be very, very wrong. Hideyoshi picked up right where Nobunaga left off, continuing the unification with the exact same iron fist. You see, Hideyoshi got really paranoid about foreign influence, especially Christianity. So, to make a terrifying example, he had 26 Christians, a mix of foreign missionaries and Japanese converts, marched all the way to Nagasaki and crucified. It was a chillingly brutal act, meant as a clear warning to anyone who dared to defy his vision for a purely Japanese society. But maybe nothing shows his calculated cruelty more than how he dealt with his own blood. When he suspected his heir, his own nephew, was plotting against him, he didn't just kick him out. He ordered him to commit ritual suicide. And then, just to erase any possible future threat, he had his nephew's entire family, his wife, his kids, his whole household, publicly executed. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a cold, systematic political purge. Now, it's tempting to just write this off as the work of two exceptionally brutal men. But the truth is, this kind of behavior was everywhere. It was the culture of leadership at the time. It was systemic. This was truly a landscape of fear. You had guys like Date Masamune, who executed his own family members to secure his spot at the top. You had Takeda Shingen, whose discipline was so harsh that the tiniest mistake meant instant death. And Shimazu Yoshihisa, who pretty much treated the lives of his people as expendable currency to buy more land. Seriously, the list of these tyrants just goes on and on. I mean, take this guy, Matsunaga Hisahide. He was infamous for betraying everyone. He even assassinated a shogun. So when Nobunaga finally cornered him, did he surrender? Nope. He blew himself up, taking his whole castle and a priceless tea kettle with him. That's the level of just violent ambition we're talking about here. It defined the whole era. So what's the bottom line here? These warlords completely rewrote the rules on what it meant to be a leader. For them, power wasn't just won on the battlefield, it was cemented with fear. And their right to rule, it didn't come from the heavens. It came from the edge of a heartless blade. And this is where we get to the core paradox of it all. The ambition was to create a unified, peaceful Japan, to end 100 years of war. A noble goal, right? But the method was pure terror, betrayal, and systematic execution. The goal of peace was achieved through some of the most violent means you can possibly imagine. And that's the thing you just can't get away from. The foundation of modern Japan,
A nation that we often see as a symbol of peace and order was built on an unbelievable amount of calculated, cold-blooded violence. The path to peace was, quite literally, paved with bones.
Which leaves us with this final, really unsettling question. We call these men the great unifiers of Japan. But when greatness is forged from that much brutality, what does that word even mean? When peace is built on a mountain of bones, can the end result ever truly justify how you got there? That's something worth thinking about.